Hello, welcome to Spotlight, like a lunar glow of loveliness.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
This evening, we head west to take a look at the moon in the cathedral. Hear from a Manx calligrapher writing herself into the news. And a first walk around the wonderful Nancy Corkish exhibition currently showing at the Loom Gallery in Laxey. Remember, do get in touch with any creative artistic endeavours you might be involved in, planning, hoping to create, or would really like to, yes, put in that spotlight, or moonlight in this case perhaps. Poetic, theatrical, musical, literary, ceramic, sculpture, drag, film, mime, social media, punk, all the others, one more coming shortly. Just email spotlight@manxradio.com or Howard Kane with an E at manxradio.com. And we can indeed add a new art form to that list this week, calligraphy. Defined as the art of producing decorative handwriting or lettering with a pen or brush. It is a beautiful art form which seems to be rarely practised these days, or indeed rarely seen. A great shame, as it is a thing of beauty. Now, if you've been listening to the news recently, you might well have heard of Emma Wilson, a Manx-born calligrapher, currently based in the northwest of England, Salford, I think, who's turned her love for the art form into a business and recently had a very high-profile client in the form of Manchester City striker Erling Haaland. She told Manx Radio's Lewis Foster more about this high-profile job and how she came into calligraphy itself.
I was born on the Isle of Man and lived there my whole life until just after I got married in 2018. So I started my business on the island. It was called Oh My Pen and Press at the time, and taught myself calligraphy. So I went to Castle Rushen High School, and after that I went to Isle of Man College, which is now UCM, taught myself calligraphy after not sticking at uni and getting a job, and I set up my own business and quite quickly was able to go part-time and then full-time when we moved to Salford. We moved to Salford for my husband's job, and we're based here now, but I'm back on the island every chance I get. I'm back over next week as well.
And clearly the business going from strength to strength, because as many people might have seen, well, in the news as well, in recent weeks, Erling Haaland signing one of the longest deals in football history, certainly in the Premier League. Tell us about your involvement in this. What was this job you've had to do?
Oh, it was a bit of a roller coaster, actually. So on the Monday, the producer of the film where he's sat at the desk and he's writing his letter to the defenders, got in touch with me and said that they were looking for a calligrapher to be able to write the message, basically write the script. So it's gonna appear that Erling is writing the script, which it was. And it would be my writing, and then when it's live writing, that would be mine as well, although obviously you can't see my hand. And it was an incredible experience. It was like a whole film set. It was just brilliant.
And I've got to ask, have you ever done anything like that before?
No, last year I started the Book of Remembrance for the newest RHS garden, which is 10 minutes from our house in Worsley. It's called RHS Bridgewater, and they filmed that. So that was the first sort of being live filmed calligraphy that I've done. There was some watercolor involved in that as well. So it's really nerve-wracking. All of a sudden you feel like you've forgotten how to do what you can do. So that was the first one, and then this that happened a couple of weeks ago was just incredible. I feel like I manifested it into existence. It was a wonderful experience. I'm so thankful that they got in touch with me.
It is really high profile and high stakes, as you mentioned there. You must have been nervous. It didn't quite go to plan, did it? Entirely.
It didn't. So So Erling came in and he sat down, and I went over to show him how to hold the pen, and my pen is a right-handed calligraphy pen, although research has told me that left-handed people do sometimes use right-handed calligraphy pens as well. You just have to hold them different. But anyway, and he looked at me and went, "I'm left-handed." Yeah. And I was like, I looked at the producer and I was like, he's left-handed, it's never going to work. And then I felt like I was insulting him, and I was like, no, but left-handed is great. And he was like, I can hold it right-handed if you want. And so we held it for a bit right-handed, but then he switched it into his left hand. And yeah, it was funny. A couple of people picked up on it on social media, sort of said he's left-handed, so where is his hand when he's writing? Which was funny because there's always one, isn't there? It was a mild panic, and yeah, we got over it pretty quick.
It sounds like he was quite accommodating and, like you say, willing to adapt. Was he a friendly character?
He was, yeah. He was really friendly. He was very accommodating. He is a character, yeah. I just got the impression that, he's like, I'm here, what do you want me to do? Like, yeah, it was great. He was there for about an hour.
And so, obviously, something so high profile, it's obviously it's a one of those dream jobs, like you mentioned, manifesting it to happen.
Yes.
Any more exciting projects on the horizon?
Oh, exciting as in I've got live calligraphy here and there planned for the next couple of months, but not anything as high profile as that just yet. But watch this space, I'm manifesting more.
How did you get into calligraphy? When did you have that first spark of inspiration?
So luckily I got into it before I had children, because I think if I'd waited till after I had children, then there's no way I would have the time or the patience to get as good at it as I have managed to get. I've always been creative, but then when my husband proposed to me, I wanted to create our own wedding invitations. So what I did was decided, well, obviously I'm going to do it myself, because that's always my mindset. I'm diagnosed ADHD. I was like, yeah, I can do it. I'll do it myself. And I managed to do it. And when you look back at those early things, you think, oh, I thought I was really good back then. And then obviously you look at where you are now. But I just think that, like, the practice of calligraphy and how quickly you can get good at it if you practice. I just truly believe that anybody can do it, which is why I love holding my workshops, because people come in and say, oh, I'm not creative. And I just think everybody can do calligraphy. You just have to put aside a little bit of time and practice at it, which is brilliant for a lot of people because it's a really mindful activity, sort of takes you out of your everyday life and just you can only focus on the strokes. So yeah, I practiced back in 2016 2017 after he proposed, and then came to fruition when I sent out my wedding invitations, and I thought, I'm going to set up a business doing this. I like doing this. But yeah, if I'd waited till after I had children, no chance.
Great story, and a wonderful, rarely featured art form. I think it's the first time we've had calligraphy on the spotlight or spoken to a calligrapher, hopefully not the last. Well done to Emma for handling such a high-profile artistic work. Must have been a bit nerve-wracking. I also have a sneaky suspicion I used to act with her many years ago, but I doubt if she'd care to remember it.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
Now, if you're up north, or is that down north? I can never remember. You might want to put an hour or so aside to drop into the Loom Gallery in Laxey. Frankly, it's a good move at any time of the year, as there's always something going on worth seeing there, but particularly fine at the moment as the current exhibition features the work of one of the island's greatest and best-known artists in recent years, the late Nancy Corkish. Well respected in artistic circles for decades, Nancy's fresh and fluid landscapes of not just the island but numerous European countries to which she travelled are a delight. But her work in various media extend well beyond that. I called in for a look around and I met up with Loom Gallery curator, the multicoloured but evergreen Julia Aspey-Smythe.
Yeah, she's been a stalwart, well-known artist for at least since the 1970s, and well known throughout the art scene, heavily involved with lots of things for the Art Society and things like that, I do believe, could be wrong. But no, everybody knew Nancy, knew her from her stamps and the book illustration, and supremely talented, wonderful artist, right from her very early tight illustrations that you might remember initially, back through to her huge, vast, green, wild landscapes with the odd sheep, maybe.
And how did this, because I think Nancy herself passed away a few years ago, how did this exhibition now, because an awful lot of this stuff, I think, has never been exhibited before?
I would say probably 95, maybe 98% has never been seen the light of day before. Nancy's daughter, Lynn, came to us when they cleared the house after Nancy's husband died last year. They found 2 absolutely stuffed, battered art folders, crammed with about 40 years worth of sketches and life drawings and finish paintings, things that had just never been exhibited, sketches that Nancy had obviously done on her travels, life drawings that she'd done with David. Sometimes David has written naughty bits on them. And just a collection. It's like going round in Europe and Ireland and the Isle of Man and looking at it through Nancy's eyes.
And so that's how, again, how it's set out here in the gallery. It's almost like a little sort of mini tour of Europe and the island, as it were, but before your eyes as you go around the 4 walls.
Yeah, because she was captivated by mountains and gorgeous scenery of Lake District and the corners of Venice. The obvious way, if you like, to help see what Nancy saw was to try and lay it out as if you're going through the places with her and seeing the things that captivated her and made her just sit down and draw, because she always took her pens and pencils and pastels with her, and she would just sit herself down and draw right there and then, so you get that feel of being there.
And so the works here, is it a selection of different media?
Yeah, there's pastels, there's pencils, there's watercolour, there's a few oils, there's some really wacky couple of abstracts that I'd never seen Nancy do at all, and they've been unearthed and cleaned and are now available. There's absolutely fine, wonderfully delicate watercolour paintings, and then those really rampant charcoal and pastel rubbed life drawings, everything.
And you're saying that, talking about the abstract stuff, just as we're standing here, as you sort of come into the gallery up from the stairs, and, well, a bit of both things, actually. There's one just right in front of us here, which is, I like a lot, and it's very eye-catching, and done, as it turns out, although I'm sure Nancy didn't mean it that way, in Manx Radio Purple, or a lot of it is, but, yeah, a totally abstract piece, which reminds me a bit of Oil on Water, but this dates, as we were saying before when you were showing it to me, it almost has a sort of psychedelic, sort of funky feel about it, but it seems to be dated early 80s.
It's got 1982. She signed it, and it is proper psychedelic. It's really captivating. I would like it very much so. But I've never seen Nancy do anything like that. And there's another fabulous green landscape abstract, which again is from around about the same period. Completely different to whatever you'd seen of Nancy do before.
Yeah, that's what struck me when you showed it to me. I thought, gosh, this is the same artist, is it?
Yeah. It's you can tell from her signature that it's still Nancy, but you'd never think that that's come from the end of her pencil, or paint. But it's fabulous. And so in contrast with other things that are here.
Oh, totally. And it's right next to her original art box, actually, full of... Is it full of pastels or are they chalks?
Pastels, yeah. It's one of her boxes that she would take with her under her arm. There's a picture of her with David down at the Sound somewhere with a board and a pastel box in hand and a hat on, ready to go and sketch something. So the last person that was touching those was Nancy, creating wonderful things.
And there are lots of wonderful things. If we just turn behind us here and just we'll go sort of a quick loop around. And this piece, which again caught my eye when they came in, and it's sort of almost entirely executed in different shades of green. Also makes you think of just how many different shades of green there are. And it's Colby Glen, and it's dated, actually we look at it, 2020, and I think you were saying this is the last known piece she actually ever did?
This was the last piece that she completed, because she went in January of 21, and it is like walking through a really ripe, freshly leaved glen, and there's two blackbirds as if they're chattering to each other, but you could just wander up that path with your flask and just sit and be in that greenness of a Manx glen. There's nothing quite like it.
It is absolutely glorious. I love that. And like I said, there's one little blackbird there, and the rest of it, the light and shade, and again, you just really get a feeling of the glen in spring. And then just either side, it's flanked on both sides by the most wonderful pencil sketches again. And it's something I'm in awe of people who can make a piece look so lifelike using nothing other than pencil and the eerie stain and Peel Castle above it. Beautifully executed little sketches, which, as you say, would she have done these in the field or started them in the field, then finished them later?
I think she did them there and then. It's that the so few lines in some of them. It's the use of negative space and the study in the Iristain one. It's just the cottage above what would be a field, and it's almost scribbled with pencil, but capturing beautifully that moment that she's been there. Obviously, she has done those. Somebody, a teacher of her daughter, told me that the daughter would say that she'd been with her mom to Peel Castle to do some sketching. So obviously she was doing things like this there.
Which are incredible, I must admit. We'll walk a little bit further up. So now we're heading, like you say, there's Switzerland and there's Greece coming up on this side as well, is there?
Yep, Switzerland, lots of mountains, lots of pines. I think she really liked Lake Garda, but the real structure of those mountains is really evident, the steepness and the ruggedness. So she's lots of lovely scenes of snowy Switzerland.
They're gorgeous, these, yeah. Lots of pines, and as you say, Switzerland, what you would imagine Switzerland. I've never actually been that much through Switzerland, only once or twice, but again, you've got the mountains in the background, churches sometimes, some nice lakes coming up. A beautiful one here, actually. I rather like this one. Doesn't specifically say where it is, but it's just called a bridge, and again, executed mostly in sort of greens, and it's just one of those. You can just imagine the sort of Lady of Shalott floating by, or going to the end and sort of skinny dipping, jumping off the end. I don't know. Do we know where that one is?
No, and a daughter doesn't know where it is. We were trying to gauge by the weepy willow type trees where it might be, but it looks like it's onto a beach or onto a foreshore. It's very mellow, very laid back. It's lovely.
The exhibition is on until the 23rd of March. The Loom Gallery open Tuesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Finally this week, we're looking to the heavens, or at least the rafters of Peel Cathedral, within which you will currently find the stunning Museum of the Moon installation, following on from the wonderful Gaia installation in St Thomas's Church last year, which saw, you might remember, a massive sculpture of the Earth suspended in the centre of the building. It was quite eerie. The moon sculpture by the same artist, Jerram, based in the UK but works internationally. Supported by funding from our friends at the Isle of Man Arts Council's Extraordinary Events Fund, the exhibit features a 7-metre, or 22-foot if you're old money like me, diameter moon replica constructed using high-resolution NASA imagery, intricately mirroring the lunar surface. Luke spoke to Mrs Sunday herself, Judith Lay, to tell her more about the artwork, the installation and his work.
The idea for the Museum of the Moon came from living in Bristol, and here we have the world's second highest tidal range. There's a 13-metre, what's that? It's about 30 or 35 foot and 40 foot gap between high tide and low tide. So I was cycling to work every day over the river and noticing this huge tidal variation. And of course it's the moon that's making that happen, as well as the geography of the land. And so, that was sort of 15 years ago. I had this idea to create this replica moon. But back then, of course, the data wasn't available, and nor was the printing technology. So it's taken 15 years to be able to kind of finally create this artwork.
It's amazing to think, Luke, that you had the idea, but none of the technology existed. Now, that really is creativity, isn't it? To imagine something that you can't actually do. So, Luke, how would you describe the artwork?
The artwork consists of a sculpture of the moon. It's 500,000 times smaller than the real thing. And it's created from high-resolution NASA imagery. So every valley and mountain and crater is defined in perfect detail. And it's a sphere. It's a 23-foot diameter sphere, just with a light inside. But it creates this illusion of texture. So in a darkened space, the public, when they first see the artwork, they're amazed by it. People ask me, how did you get it in the building? Because it doesn't look like a balloon, whereas actually it is just a balloon. When people ask me if it's made of fiberglass or if it's made of concrete, because there is this sort of illusion that's created. And this replica moon allows the public to see the moon in every last detail, but also go around the far side of the moon and see the dark side as well. The moon we see from Earth only faces one direction, so we only ever get to see the front side of the moon, the with these darker patches. And it was only in 1959 that the Soviets sent a satellite around the far side of the moon, and the public were able to sort of see what that looked like. So people are very excited to be able to see the artwork up close and have their own sort of close encounter. The reason I made this artwork was because I'm passionate about both the science of the moon and astronomy, but also I'm interested in the art of the moon as well. Humanity has been staring at the moon for 200,000 years. It's always been a destination for humanity, somewhere to aspire to visit one day. And the moon has inspired so much literature and music and mythology in every culture right around the world. And so I've created this replica and I'm touring it around the world as a way of kind of collecting those ideas and those stories and those different beliefs. And that's why I'm calling it the Museum of the Moon, this idea of kind of collecting a sort of human understanding and relationship that we have with the moon.
This is something very different. It's not a conventional artwork. So, Luke, how popular has it been so far?
We've had more than 100 exhibitions in 30 different countries right around the world, from India to America, from Hong Kong to Australia. I mean, it's been really surprising. And over 3.5 million people have experienced and seen this artwork as it's been touring. So it's been a great success. The artwork is being presented in different contexts. So if I take the artwork to China, people instantly think about the moon in relation to their Mid-Autumn festival. The moon has a great sort of spiritual significance in their culture. Whereas if I take the moon to America, people instantly think about the Apollo moon mission. So there's different interpretations around the world. And again, if I put the artwork in a science museum, people think about the artwork quite scientifically, whereas if I put it in a cathedral or a church, people will then think about the moon perhaps in relation to God and the creation of the universe perhaps. And again, we put the moon in swimming pools, so you can swim out underneath the moon, and that's very beautiful as well. So depending on where it goes in the world and the context and how it's presented, the interpretation shifts. The artwork comes with a composition, a surround sound composition by a composer called Dan Jones, who I've worked with for many years. And he's won a BAFTA and a couple of Ivor Novello Awards as well. And for me, the music is a way of connecting the sculpture with the architecture of the space. So the music can help kind of create an installation, can help fill the space and create an atmosphere for the interpretation of the sculpture.
Another unique feature of this art installation is that it's not a static object to be looked at and left. There's more to it, Luke, isn't there?
The artwork is both this sculpture and installation for the public to experience, but it's also a venue for events to take place. So wherever the moon has gone, there's been a whole host of lunar-inspired events taking place beneath the moon. So we've had opera in Italy, and we've had film nights and astronomy lectures and choirs and cheese and wine events. So in that way, the artwork leaves space for other people to be creative, and within my practice, that's quite important.
Luke, I'm absolutely sure that everyone who sees the Museum of the Moon reacts differently. Can you tell us any reactions that have particularly affected you?
The response is really interesting. We launched the artwork recently at the Natural History Museum, and this guy came up to me and he was all sort of in tears and emotional. And it turns out he was an astronomer working for the European Space Agency, and he'd spent his entire life studying the surface of the moon, and he became all emotional and he needed a hug. So I had to give him a hug, and that seemed to sort him out. That was great. And just last year, this little girl came up to me and she said, "Will you put the moon back afterwards?" So she thought I'd stolen the real moon. So I had to definitely reassure her that I would definitely put the moon back afterwards.
You can drop in during the day to just stare and ponder. But there are also a whole host of workshops, Pilates sessions and music performances taking place beneath the illuminated moon during its time in the cathedral, which runs through until the 2nd of March, so plenty of time to check it out. I'll leave you with a bit more of a Song to the Moon, performed by Minds Ashanti at the opening evening of the installation last weekend. That's about it for this week. I'll be back next week. We'll hear all about ravers at Kensington Arts, KA. What, I hear you ask? Well, you'll have to tune in to find out. See you then. Himo.
You